Welcome back, everyone. You're looking live at Generation to Generation Cowboys and Sports Talks. I'm the host, DJ. I tell you what, and I have my co-host, my dad, Cowboy Joe 64, aka Capricorn One, on Twitter, and we're back with another episode. So today, um, is Wednesday, October 1st. No, it's Tuesday, October 1st, and so we're gonna just talk about a few things that we were looking on the internet, scouring all of the beat writers and all of the outlets and a lot of the fans and a lot of the YouTube content creators and a lot of the things that they were saying today. And a lot of them really hopped off the screen at me. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today. And did you have anything that you wanted to talk about specifically?
So we saw the little tidbit about Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper. So did you see that?
Yes, I did see that. And so, just going right in on talking about that. um, Now, of course, Jerry and Steven are going to say we can't afford them, and they've already said that. They already said that we can't afford any free agents, and that they're not going to be. Their exact words were, well, Jerry's exact words were, teams are not just in the business of trading their best players. Yes, they are. They do it all the time. So they do it all the time. I mean, that's just a
Just not with them.
yeah. No, we don't do that, but uh, actually we do that because we traded Coop away for no reason. So yeah, they teams do that all the time every year. It's just a statement that doesn't make any sense. So Devontae Adams is getting traded. He requested a trade today, and believe it or not, the teams that are have been vocal about trying to acquire him, believe it or not, um, they have the same kind of cap issues that the Cowboys do. As a matter of fact, a few of them are worse. Kansas
Hmm.
City is the worst in the league right now. They're like 8 million. Actually, I can be a matter of exact. They are 5.6 million over the cap. I guarantee you that in the next coming day or so, we're going to see that one of them signed there. And then they're going to go to the championship, and then they're going to be able to relate getting that receiver directly to going to the championship, and then the Joneses are going to ignore that. Uh, the Ravens are 180,000 over the cap. They're another team that they go out, they do things. They might try to get Amari Cooper or Devontae. Uh, the 49ers. Now they got as many players and good players as they have. Why are they in the conversation to draft to trade for a receiver like Amari Cooper and Devontae Adams when they have Debo and Brandon Ayuk that they just paid and all of these, they have all of these weapons, but they just want to acquire talent, and that's just what good teams do, and that's what they'll do, and then that's why they'll be in the NFC Championship again. Um, so as you all can see, I'm pretty frustrated with the Cowboys in their state as far as just mismanaging the team. And I'm really a Dak fan, and I'm really a CD fan, and I just feel I'm a Micah fan too, and definitely gonna talk about Micah today because his podcast was very telling, and it
So
was
what
very.
what what did Michael say? You was talking about that. I didn't get that. What did he say?
Oh man, he was just saying that
He's on a podcast with one of the Eagles players.
yeah, Darius Slay.
So they're doing a podcast together.
Mm-hmm. They are. I
That's
mean,
that's interesting.
so I want to touch on that too. We people as fans, okay, this is not the 1960s and 70s anymore. Okay, now we do have rivals, and our players um do have quote unquote personal vendettas and personal rivalries. The good example would be Malik Neighbors and Trayvon Diggs. They've been talking all off season, and they've been going back and forth, but it's fun rivalry. It's fun. They don't hate each other's guts. After
Yep.
every play, it was very very competitive. But they're smiling and talking and exchanging jerseys after the game, and this is just they friends outside of the league. And so
Yeah.
Micah is from up north, and so, he's been knowing Darius Slay for a long time. So, and he been knowing the running back that they had last year. I think he went to the Panthers.
Yeah.
They
Sweat. I like Sweat. I wish we could have signed him.
Right. They grew up together. They grew up together. They played little leagues together. They played in college, before they went off to their camps. It's kind of like, it's just kind of like Colin. When you look at Colin, it's gonna be players from Duncanville and DeSoto and other schools that were top echelon like him that he gonna know that they gonna eventually be playing on the opposite side of each other at some point in their careers. You know what I mean? So it's just like
Yeah.
that's the whole thing with him and him and Dishley. Now they were talking about they were talking about the Commanders and how the Commanders looking good, and
What were they saying about the Commanders?
they were just saying that they got him one, they got them one, and they young rookie quarterback, and that they're gonna be hard to stop because they both on the defensive side of the ball. So especially for Slay, he gonna have to go out their receivers. So, you know, they was talking about that. But really, what stood off to me is that Michael was saying that he's tired of getting the blame, and it's always the fans always blaming the players, but it's never about the coaches and it's never about the scheme. He was just like, why can't the scheme be bad? Why can't the coaches be bad? He was just like me. This was his exact words, or something very similar to it. He said, "Look at me, for example. People want to know why I'm not making plays. Well, in order for me to make plays, I got to move around." He was just like, if I'm not moving around and I'm going up against three grown men every single play, then I mean, then another thing he said was, and we're talking about stopping the run. Well, how can I help stop the run and be an impact player if I'm rushing the passer every single play and they throw the ball 40% of the time and run 60? How can I, what effect would I have? Then another thing he said was, he said, what did he say? Oh, he said a lot of people get mad at me and I'm doing what I'm told to do. He said, I'm just doing what I'm told to do. I'm just doing what they telling me to do. Like I can't do nothing else besides what they tell me to do. So he was, I know after this podcast right here, he gonna go in that locker room and them coaches gonna be looking at him sideways because he was really kind of just, I don't want to say he was throwing them under the bus because he wasn't making it seem like he was talking about his coaches per se, but the way he was saying these things, it was just like he was talking about himself. So we know he's talking about his coaches. And then also he was talking about how good other teams' defensive coordinators are. He didn't even mention them. He was talking about uh some other defense coordinator. He was just like, man, they defense coordinator, the Vikings defense coordinator. He was talking about
Oh
the
yeah.
Vikings. He was just like, man, that dude, how they got them.
Brian, is Flores?
I think it might
And
be
it's
who
Flores, right?
I think it might be whoever it
Yeah,
is. They
Brian
got
Flores. He was he was a coach.
him.
He got into some trouble with the league because he was a coach of the Dolphins, and the
Hmm.
Dolphins owner was sort of telling him to try to tank so they would get a high draft pick, and he wasn't with that. And he actually sued the league, which is pretty interesting. Normally, when you sue the league, you're done. They blackball you, but
He got
you know
hired in
they
Pittsburgh, right?
he got hired in Pittsburgh, and now he's at Minnesota. But he's the latest Shanahan killer. He is like undefeated against the Shanahan offense. Now, of course, his head coach for Minnesota is a Shanahan guy. So, the Vikings they did this a few years back. They had what was the guy's name? He was a career backup quarterback. They won a lot of games and they went to the playoffs, and they actually lost to the Eagles. Uh, his name will come to me in a minute, but anyway, but no, he's one of the latest Yoda defensive coordinators. So, and he studied under Belichick too. He's a Belichick tree guy.
You can tell. I mean, look, you can tell. Look at Sam Bradford. Look how they playing. They're undefeated. They're one of the only it's them and Kansas City are the only two undefeated teams left.
Yeah,
So
and Sam Darnold, again, you just inserting somebody in that Shanahan offense, and if you got any kind of talent, you can make it happen.
mhm. And the Cowboys gave up a fourth round pick for Trey Lance.
So I'm still trying to figure out a way we can get Trey Lance to the Dolphins. So is anybody talking about the Dolphins trying to look at Trey Lance because they in pretty bad shape?
Well, what I just seen today was that two are gonna be ready in a few weeks.
Oh no, he gonna get knocked out again. It's a matter of time. But going back to Micah, I really think that this might be like a watershed moment. So I'm thinking that, and can you hear me okay?
I can. You perfect.
So I'm thinking when he come back, because of the injury too, you're probably going to see him playing off ball a little bit more. Because when I was watching the game, I said the way they playing him, they really kind of wearing Micah out, and he's going to get hurt. And as soon as I said that, of course, knock on wood, but he basically got tackled from behind. It was a guy in front of him, a guy behind him, and that's how he hurt his leg. So yeah, they gonna have to be real smart. But I think what you said is probably true. They're probably gonna be the organization is gonna be looking at how they use him the rest of the year, especially with that injury.
I don't think you've seen he got hurt in the first half, and he really wasn't supposed to come back in, but he did. He went to
When
the
he got
10.
hit in the head,
Yeah,
yeah, I saw
he
that.
he got landed on by Mozzie, and
Yeah.
then when Mozzie landed on him, and then he got up, he was like wobbly. You know what I mean?
Well,
And then he
the
went,
NFL is all over that, so
well, they
surprised they let
tried,
him go back in.
they tried, but Michael, if it's anybody on the Cowboys team that they would try, and that person would go fight them to the teeth, tooth and nail, it'd be Micah. But he went back out there, and he was just, Micah. To me, when you watch Micah play, and it happens each year, and it's just happening more and more and more and more. To me, there's a correlation with the way he plays and where he plays. To me, it's just like when he plays on the end, it's kind of, you remember how Overshawn was in that game when we played the Ravens, and Overshawn came in, but it was just like he was just like, man, I've been on the sideline all game. I'm not really into this like that. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? That's how Micah be playing. Mike could be playing like that all the time. He like, man, I'm just rushing the passer, man. I'm not getting no sack. They got the Cowboys. I think they got 8 sacks. They like the lowest in the league. So it's just like Mike is not having fun. You know what I mean? They losing. He not having fun, and he don't like the position that he's in. And and now he's saying that on his podcast. He said that he basically said that you got guys playing positions that they don't even that's another thing he said what's happening with the rest of the league is that these coaches are playing to their players strengths. They're coaching to their players strengths, like in Minnesota they're coaching to Sam Darnold's strengths. They're playing the defenses, they're paying these guys to do a certain thing, and then they're using them to do those things. But you have the Cowboys who putting guys in a position that they're not even supposed to be playing. And that is no further than the truth. You can just look all around the Cowboys team, and you'll see that in many instances. You'll see, like, what is Wanye doing returning kicks? He's a safety. What is he doing?
a good safety. Yeah,
A good safety. And then it doesn't make any sense because Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson, they're having some of the lowest. Well, first of all, they're playing the lowest. They're the lowest rated that they've ever been since they've been here. Both of them are the lowest rated that they've ever been since they've been here. That's number one. It's a new defense, so you know we can only come with that excuse for so long.
well, they got Donovan Wilson playing cover too, so he's too far out the line of scrimmage to really be effective. He's somebody that needs to be around the line of scrimmage.
I
That
agree.
should be his role. So kind of surprised that Zim is handling like that. But really, what's happening with Dallas is on both sides of the ball. They're just not managing the talent. They got guys on both sides that could contribute and could play, but
Mhm.
they just being mismanaged. I think Donovan Wilson is a good player, but you just got to use him in the right role. So, look, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I expect when Michael comes back, you're gonna see a different scheme with him. And then we keep talking about these rivalry games. He's probably gonna want to play in that 49er game. So we'll just kind of see. Hopefully he's not rushing back, but he understands the Cowboys 49ers thing.
Mhm.
So he'll probably want to try to play in that game, but I see him in a different role because they should know. after this injury. They just can't just park him at edge and just leave him there like they've been doing, which Zim said he wasn't going to do that. So
and he's done that. And then he said he wasn't going to do that. And then also, the offense. Now we don't. They're not using Floneroy. They're not using Floneroy. They're not using they're
Turpin.
Turpin. They're not
So,
using Turpin.
so what McCarthy he doesn't do whenever they have something flowing or working, he comes back the next game and he gets away from it. So we watch a lot of other content creators, and I really like Will Steele's breakdown. Shout out to Will Steele. He said something that was really profound this morning. He said that last year the Cowboys were rated high. They may have been number one offensively. So McCarthy found some things last year that worked, and they start putting up points. They start, we was blowing people out. Well, instead of what Will said, instead of in the offseason, McCarthy just taking that, the pre-snap motion, the bunch routes, and all of that stuff that he had added last year that worked. He came back into this season and he just started back from ground zero. The stuff that he was doing that worked, he didn't even continue with that when the season started this year. So Will was saying, like, what did he do the entire offseason where the season starts and he's not building on the success they had last year? Because at this moment, he's not even using the stuff that worked last year. So that's
Let me
just
add.
that's just terrible coaching.
Let me bring a receipt for what you just said. I'm gonna bring a receipt
Mhm.
for that. This is from John Owning on Twitter. The Cowboys rank 24th in shift motion rate. Now I looked that up. After this was before the game. After the game, they ranked 30th.
So that's the pre-snap motion.
Yeah, they ranked 30th.
Yeah.
So they ranked 30th in pre-snap motion. They rank 21st in RPOs. They rank 27th in play action rate and 23rd in bunch formation rate. So,
Yeah, you can see it.
and our running backs are dead last, both of them. Zeke and Rico, they're both dead last.
Yeah. So McCarthy, this is what he got criticized for in Green Bay right before he was let go. So we're kind of in a pickle now. Last year he snapped out of it. He came back and he just kind of made that huge adjustment, and we went on a winning streak. Start playing good football. So you got to hope that somebody's got to be pulling him to the side, telling him, "This is what you got to do. You
Hmm.
need to make this adjustment now because look, man, with the schedule that we got, if he don't figure this thing out, the people on the offensive side of the ball, they're healthy. You got, except your running backs. I believe that Rico is good enough to win games. I really
Hmm.
do.
Oh, he
You got
definitely is.
and Turpin, Tolbert look very good against Baltimore. We know what CD is.
Right.
Jake Ferguson, they need to activate John Stevens. So now your guy Lukey, he's catching on. So McCarthy don't have no excuses. Zimmer,
Mm-mm.
he's got to really kind of go to his Dr. Frankenstein lab and come up with some stuff. And Zim, he has a lot of blitz stuff that he can use, and he hadn't used it yet. He's gonna have to use it now.
Hmm.
But McCarthy, he don't have no excuse.
No, he don't. And then that's why I say it's all going together to me, and it all starting to make sense now because it's just like, okay, well, it's my opinion that Jerry didn't really want McCarthy back. That's my opinion. And it's also my opinion, and it's also your opinion that regardless of what happens next year, he's not coming back unless they win a Super Bowl. Which,
So Jesse Holly said that today on their DLLS show. Shout
yeah,
out to them. Jesse said he ain't coming back. So
no,
that's
he ain't.
I think that's a pretty much understanding with probably everybody that covers the team.
Yeah, that's an understanding. So with that, I'm looking at it like, okay, well, if that's the case, which we think it is, Jerry is at this point, it's just, because McCarthy, like we just said, he doesn't have anything else to blame. And it's not the players. It's not because, I mean, even though we don't have a firepower running back tandem, or we don't have a really good second receiver, Those are obvious things, but you can get it done with Dak, CD, Rico, Turpin, Tolbert, Lukey,
Now,
Ferguson.
you do have some issues on the offensive line with the young players, Guyton, BB, and then still
Hmm.
they haven't gelled yet. But again, they can get there. There's some things that they can do. Now they said Thursday night, last Thursday, they were not giving Guyton any help. They're gonna have to Sunday. So I expect to see that adjustment because they're not going to let TJ Watt over there come out this
Well,
game with 6 sacks.
well, I'll tell you one thing for sure. What's going to happen is in this game is Steele is going to get the majority of TJ Watt because you know that's the side TJ Watt come from majority of the time.
So
But
he don't move around.
no, well he does. But from I was listening to it might have been DLLS when they was saying that. Or it might have been Mickey Spagnolia. I don't
So
know
he
who it
stays
was.
on one side.
They were saying that Terrence Steele got his work cut out for him this week.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's the case, then that's
I'm
better for Guyton. I don't even know who their other edge is.
yeah, but that's also it's better for Guyton, but it's not good for Terrence Steele because I don't think he's been good since he came back from injury. So I think he gonna have his work cut out for him now. And now Pittsburgh, it would make sense for them to move TJ to that side because that's Dak's
Yeah.
blind side, and also that's Guyton. He's a rookie. So my thing is, I think Jerry and Steven are just letting McCarthy drown. And they're just like, you either gonna show that you are a Super Bowl caliber head coach and a play caller by getting the job done with what you have, or we're gonna have a good enough reason to
Well,
move on next year.
I don't think they letting him drown per se, but Jerry is being Jerry. Jerry is saying to himself, we got a good enough team for you to be able to do something with what you have. And so that's what Jerry's all about. You're gonna if you're a good coach, you're gonna just take what I give you and you're gonna figure it out. That's where Jerry's coming from. I think Steven probably is more realistic with what's happening. But what's happening with Dallas with the Cowboys overall is that their philosophy of draft and develop and not taking part in free agency, it's like the chickens coming home to roost because it's all just hitting the fan, and it's gonna hit the fan eventually when that's your philosophy. You don't want to do anything in free agency. You're relying on the draft, and then with the draft, even if you hit your players, some of them they're gonna look like rookies every other week. So I think again, it just comes back down to. I was thinking about this today. So, and I'm going to my Cowboy OG mode. So, in the last 28 years, it was three teams in the NFL that hadn't made it to a conference championship game. The three teams were the Cowboys, Washington, and the Lions in the last 28 years. So, think about that. In the last 28 years, most of your adult life, most of your life, actually, think about this. In the 28 years, teams like Atlanta, they've made it to an NFC championship game. Jacksonville has made it. Uh, Tampa, some of the traditional teams that didn't have a lot of success. The Colts. Just think about all of those teams out there. The only three teams that had made it was Dallas, the Lions, and Washington. Well, last year the Lions made it to the NFC Championship game, so they're off the list. So Dan Campbell has come in and kind of changed uh, the franchise. They playing great football, physical football. Now you saw the coordinator last night for Detroit, Ben Johnson. That's gonna be the coach that everybody's gonna try to hire. Now they said last year when he was on the uh, list of interviews, he told teams that he had a certain price for his salary, and so when teams saw that, they backed off. So he returned to Detroit, but he's gonna be the hottest coach that's gonna be eligible to be hired. That's the first person that should be on Jerry's list, but they don't believe in paying coaches. They don't like to pay coaches. So I was telling your Uncle Eric, one of us is gonna be proven right. Either you and him, y'all on that side where y'all just believe that they don't want to hire somebody that they gotta pay, a good coach don't want to come here. I'm of the belief that they just don't know how to hire. That you can find a good coach, but they just have poor hiring practices. That's my theory. They could have figured out a way to hire Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan or LaFleur from Green Bay, or what's the coach? O'Connell is the coach at Minnesota.
I
But
think
instead of hiring that kind of coach, he's hiring Wade and Jason Garrett, and
I mean,
he's interviewing Ron Rivera.
does
That's
it
the
have any,
problem.
does it have anything to do with the fact that does he have like a personal beef with Shanahan to where he's just like we're not we're
No,
just not going Shanahan route. It's just not what we're doing at all.
there is no beef. It's just him not knowing what I keep going back to. They got criticized heavily for not being football guys. That's what people kept saying about them. And then they hired Jimmy. Over the years, they had success. And then Jerry Jones got into the Hall of Fame, but it was based on his business acumen. It wasn't the football side. So I think what keeps happening with Dallas is they're showing that they own the team, they are the GMs, him and Steven. But at the end of the day, they don't really have a good understanding of hiring good football people. Now, over the years, they had people like I've talked to you about when Jimmy was a coach, and you had Jimmy, then they had Jeff Ireland. He was a scout that was getting all of those players. Uh, you might have heard this name. This is a Cowboy OG, a guy named Larry Lacewell. You ever heard of him?
I have, yeah.
So he was a guy that was in the organization um, that was behind the scenes. But since those guys left, Jerry and Steven really have just kind of done their own thing. And Will McClay, a lot of people give Will McClay a lot of credit, but Will McClay is with them.
Hmm.
Whatever their philosophy is, that's his philosophy. He's just there to carry out the mission. And then sometimes they rely on him for the draft and stuff like that. And, the draft, you know how that goes. So, but at the end of the day, I think the reason that he never hired like the defensive coordinator for Kansas City, Spagnuolo,
Hmm.
at this time, he's the best coordinator. Him and Brian Flores, Brian Flores is coming on. But Spagnuolo is the best defensive mind in the game. Now, Spagnuolo, he came from the tree, a guy named Jim Johnson. Jim Johnson was the defensive coordinator for the Eagles when they had Reggie White, that Eagles team that the 90s Cowboys could never beat.
Hmm.
You remember how the Chicago Bulls had the Detroit Pistons?
Hmm.
For the 90s Cowboys, that team was the Eagles. We
Yeah,
never could beat them.
yeah,
But
that's correct.
Jim Johnson was the defense coordinator. Well, Steve Spagnuolo is one of his proteges. But to make a long story short, Jerry had multiple chances to hire Steve Spagnuolo, but he hired Rob Marinelli.
Mm.
Rob Marinelli, who, as the Detroit Lions coach, went 0-16. Rob Marinelli comes from the Tony Dungy tree. That scheme is old and outdated. And
Hmm.
so at the end of the day, I think what's happening with the Cowboys is just that they don't do a good job analyzing what works.
Hmm.
They don't do a good job of hiring. And I have a hiring background. I was talking to your uncle the other night about that, how our company that I work for, our biggest competitor that we had, they would have put us out of business because they had way more money than we did, UPS. They actually tried to do it a couple of times, but the reason they couldn't put us out of business is because we were always ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, state of the art, technology. We would do stuff that they just wouldn't do. We was doing the Sean McVays and the Shanahan. That's what we did as a company.
Hmm.
Jerry and Steven, they don't do that.
Hmm.
And so what's happening now? It's all coming back to bite them. So
Hmm.
the
And see, it's
Commanders,
yeah,
they doing the state of the art thing
they are.
now.
And you see, Dan Quinn went right in there and did that. He went right in there, and he immediately got busy in free agency. He immediately got busy in the draft. Right
Immediately
now,
signed the linebacker that we never could sign. What's his name?
immediately,
What's his name?
from the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm naming
immediately.
case me at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, they got him immediately. So yeah, so and then like I said, it's not
And
a
also one other thing, the other thing that they did that was smart, a lot of people said that Caleb Williams was the better quarterback. My camera's doing that thing.
yeah. You got to back it up. I don't know how.
Oh man, there, like it's going back.
Okay, it's cool.
Anyway, so look, a lot of people had Caleb Williams as the best player in that draft, but what they did that was very smart, their football people said, no, Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback.
Well, it's looking like that right now.
Yeah.
So, and then these things correlate. I mean, it's not like a mystery. Yeah, we got to look up. We'll have to look up the gestures for that. Yeah,
Hmm.
but anyway, it's not a mystery. It's just like I said earlier. You can pinpoint certain things. Like just think about it. Like Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo. You can pinpoint that those two people relate to championships. I mean, it's just not a misnomer. Just like you can point to the Shanahan offense equaling wins and equaling big wins. They're always in the NFC Championship game. They're always
Well,
in the
well, Andy Reid, when he left Philadelphia, he was the Mike McCarthy of the Eagles. His offense wasn't doing much.
Mm-mm.
He
Right.
wasn't, he had went to the Super Bowl, but so Philadelphia ran him out of town. But what he did when he got to Kansas City, he just revamped everything and got with the current game and just redid and took his offense to the next level. McCarthy hasn't done that.
Correct. And it's just like there's an answer for this.
And Jerry could have hired Andy Reid too.
He could have. And there's an answer for this too. And the answer is you switch up your scheme, you switch up your the way you draft things. Look at I like to use the Bulls too because I'm a huge Bulls fan. I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan. I put it like that. So with Michael Jordan them, they couldn't beat the Pistons. But it was a few things that happened. Their basketball guy, Tex Schramm, brought over brought over who did he bring over? He brought over Phil Jackson, right? And when he
Yeah,
brought over
his name was Jerry. What's his
Jerry,
name?
no Jerry West or Jerry, that was they owner or that was their GM, right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Right. So with their GM and with their owner, um, um, he brought in Phil
Jackson.
Jackson from overseas or wherever he was at doing his thing. But anyway, they just sat back and they was running the triangle offense and they was running a new scheme and Tex and Phil was running a new scheme and they was just trying to get it together. Well, finally, once they start implementing that scheme, Jerry said that you know what, we don't need that coach that they had. I forget his name. Is it like Dan?
Doug Collins.
Doug Collins. They told Doug Collins, even though you just got us to the playoffs, we're gonna have to let you go because we're gonna promote Phil and Tex is his buddy. They doing the triangle thing. So they implemented the triangle, and then what happened? The first year they got beat by Detroit. But then the next year they went on a three-peat because nobody could figure out their new scheme. Just like what you're saying, that scheme was a Shanahan scheme. That scheme, that triangle, it still ran today. And when it's ran right, you get
Yeah.
you have success. So
And what they did too, they made some key trades and key free agents.
brought
They
in
just
Rodman.
again. So the thing that you got to look at with the Cowboys is they got this is $1 billion franchise, but they not using the right hiring, the right analytics, and they just kind of like people keep saying this. What is the definition of insanity? Is when you doing the same thing over and over with the same results. They are the definition of that, which is really just crazy.
There's no other way to explain it. How can you double down on doing something that doesn't work and tell yourself that eventually it's going to work? It's not. It doesn't make any sense to me. How do you go from being a number one offense for EPA, and then the next year you come back and you revert back to what did not work instead of like
It
just think.
sounds like your coach in the offseason, he didn't really do anything.
I mean, just think about it. Like if these were this is sports we're talking about, but just think about that logic. Think about if that was like a doctor or
Mm,
or a president or something like that. You see what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
it would be catastrophic. Think about a pilot. Think of a pilot. Think of a pilot decided, you know what, I'm gonna do all the things that didn't work. That would just be insane. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
And that's what we did. So my company was which was FedEx. We were able to, UPS was a giant. They were literally like they could literally just write a check and buy FedEx. Well, they could back then, but the way we were competitive is we were always innovative. We were always ahead of the curve. We were always updating things. We never. It was like the thing about it was the word was always changed. I mean, you would literally come to work one day you was doing something one way, the next day it would be different.
Now, what Jerry
And
them is gonna say is, yeah, they're innovative when it comes to stadiums, when it
no,
comes to, I
it
think it's
moved.
yeah, it's just following you. So I
Yeah,
think if you go like that, if you move your hand over there, it's gonna move over there. If you go this way, it's gonna go that way. But we'll
but
figure it out.
it's good. Yeah,
Um,
but
but
but yeah,
they do the state of the art things when it comes to building the stadium and the practice facilities and all of that. But when it comes to actually running a football organization, they're in the night. They're in the Flintstones. They don't know
and
what
it
they.
and then the other thing that is
Oh, okay.
falling
So
my
whatever,
finger, I guess.
whatever
But
that means go back.
yeah. So the other thing is that the coach, something that hasn't really been explained in the last 28 years is Jerry has this thing where he literally would just say, I'm going to pay a coach the lowest salary in the league. Now, that's where you and Uncle Eric are winning the argument because his coaches, he just thinks that I don't have to pay a coach. There's just no explanation for the most valuable franchise in the world. It's not just in the US, it's in the world that you don't have the best, highest paid coach. Now, when he brought Parcells in, Parcells was up there
You
because
know
he
what?
knew that going in.
I just
But
want to say something here
but
before we.
Wade and Jason Garrett wasn't.
I just want to say something. When it comes to them hiring coaches, it's always the reason. You can point to the reason. I'm gonna have to figure out the reason for Jason Garrett. But the reason, and I think I got an idea.
The reason to hold your train of thought, the reason for Jason Garrett is because the football man and Jerry thought Jason Garrett was Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. That's what he thought he was getting.
And
Now,
also, it had something to do with the fact that Jason Garrett was a Cowboy before. He really loved him, and he really wanted to see
well,
him win, right?
it- that was kind of it, but he thought, and there were some other people in the league too. In his defense, they thought that Jason Garrett was one of the up and coming, like the guy I'm talking about, Ben Johnson.
Yeah,
Everybody kind of thinks he's
Floyd.
going to be. Well, it was some discussion that Jason Garrett was one of those guys, but Jerry thought it more than anybody.
But
But
once he found out, he should have cut that off, but he didn't.
yeah, it should have took him 3 or 4 years to figure out that he wouldn't.
Right.
And
So when you look at the past coaches, it's always an ulterior motive besides football, besides winning, and why they're hiring these guys when it comes to that. Because I'm looking at Bill Parcells, with the new stadium being built. I'm looking at
well, Parcells, understand too. Even with the stadium thing, Parcells was a legendary coach. It was
uh,
just like hiring Jimmy.
that
And,
has
and
something to do with it too. If
yeah,
you're a new guy or a college guy, Jerry don't want to have nothing to do with you.
no, and that's a problem
Right.
because I can understand you're saying you don't want a college guy, but there are guys in this league. You know, I think I told you this before, and I was same thing with your Uncle Eric. The thing is, Sean McVay, nobody knew who he was.
Mm-mm.
Now, Kyle Shanahan, his dad was a legendary coach. Kevin O'Connell, the coach of the Vikings, LaFleur from the Packers. These are not like household names, but they're guys in the league that they put in the work in. They got a good system. That's how you do it. So you got some best practices that you could use to hire coaches, but they don't do it. That's
I
why
mean,
when they have an opening, they're interviewing Ron Rivera. Nobody's going to interview Ron Rivera for a job. It's not going to happen.
you mean to tell
Uh,
me they was going to interview Rex Ryan?
they interviewed Rex Ryan, which would have been a horrible hire.
It's like, what are we talking about here?
Ron Rivera would have been a horrible hire.
It's just like
Um, and
Kellen
then
Moore.
And then McCarthy, the reason that I think Jerry was infatuated with McCarthy is McCarthy is the coach that beat them in that 2016 game. You know, that was basically McCarthy out coaching Jason Garrett, which he did in that game.
Well, we got
But
cheated, but that's another thing.
so yeah, that's kind of what happens there. So you but his hiring practices at the end of the day, they're just not good. They're not efficient. They don't do their homework. And one thing I'm gonna tell you too about hiring, and I was a hiring manager for 20 something years, and we can go ahead and wrap after this. But your hiring practices basically says anytime you have any kind of opening, you want to hire a minimum of 5 to 8 people. I mean, you want to hire. I'm sorry, you want to interview a minimum of 5 to 8 people.
They don't
That's
do.
the standard. So when they have a job opening, they should interview 5 or 8 coaches. But what they do, they go around that process. They get 3 or 4 guys that they know, and then they hire from that pool right there. And then when they hired McCarthy, they brought him in. And he spent the night over there at the mansion, and that's who they went with. But it was a lot of other people they could have interviewed. They did the same thing with Rob Marinelli, by the way. They started out with Money Kiffin. So Money Kiffin was the dad of the Kiffin that's at where's Kiffin at? Is he at Mississippi State? Money not Money Kiffin. Money Kiffin was the dad. But so when they got tired of Rob Ryan in the 3-4, they said it was going back to the 4-3. So what they do when they went back to the 4-3, instead of going to find an up and coming 4-3 guy, they went and hired the oldest 4-3 coach they could find, playing the Tampa 2, Money Kiffin. And his protege was Rob Marinelli. So when Money Kiffin left, they didn't interview other coaches for the opening. They just slotted Rob Marinelli in. That's how they
Mhm.
got Marinelli.
And then also you gotta look at it too. You wanna go back to the paying thing. The people that they're hiring, they're okay with not making a lot of money. It's just like
That's the
it's just
problem, and that's the argument that you and your uncle are making. That when you do that, you're not getting good coaches. However, my counter to that is the Sean McVays, the LaFleurs, the O'Connells. Those guys, they're trying to make their name in the league. They're up and coming coaches, so they're going to be okay with not being the highest paid because they're just trying to make their bones and kind of get
not
established.
not
So
being Johnson.
well, he's not now. What he told people last year that he wasn't. He I don't even know why he said that. It might be him and his agent, but that's what he said. Which hey, if you're gonna get out there and be looking for a job, there's nothing wrong with telling people this is what you want.
Nah, I don't
But
think nothing wrong with that either. I sure don't think nothing wrong with that. You know your
so
worth. So and then look at Kellen Moore. They gonna hire Kellen Moore because Kellen Moore will be okay with making minimum salary.
yeah, he when McCarthy leaves, and I hope I'm wrong, but you and your uncle are correct. What they're gonna do when McCarthy leaves, they're gonna interview Ron Rivera. They're gonna interview Rex Ryan again. They're gonna interview Zim, and then they're gonna interview Kellen.
And we gotta throw
What
the Rooney rule. So who is that gonna be?
uh they might
Brian
they might
Flores?
they I with the thing that he did against with the league suing the league, I don't even think Jared would interview him. It'll be somebody out there that you can find somebody that you can bring in. But what they should do, they should hire 10. They should interview 10 coaches, and of the 10 coaches, they should interview Ben Johnson, Bob Slowick, the uh, play caller at Houston, and they should interview Kubiak, the coach that beat them a couple of weeks ago. Was that New Orleans or was it
Yeah, what about
Baltimore?
the who is the defensive coordinator for Detroit? What's his name?
I don't know who their
Aaron
defensive
Glenn?
coordinator. It's Aaron Glenn. So, well, going back to what you said, that might be somebody that they bring in for the Rooney Rule. But I don't think Aaron Glenn is a head coach. See, another thing they keep doing too, they keep hiring guys that are really slated to be good coordinators and not uh, head coaches. That's what they did with Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips was one of the legendary defensive coordinators, but he's not a head coach.
Well, my thing with that is I don't really to me and I understand what you're saying and I get that I get that sometimes. But sometimes I don't get that because it's just like, well, I mean, if they're like let's just use Aaron Glenn for example. if Aaron Glenn is a good defensive coordinator, if he's a great defensive coordinator, well, then why not hire him as a head coach and then just get somebody that's great to run your offense? I mean, let him run the
You
defense and be your head
you
coach.
you could do that. One guy you forgot too that they're gonna interview. They're gonna interview Al Harris.
Well, again, he's a
Yeah,
perfect example of the person I think we're talking about. I would love for him to be the coordinator, but not the head coach. But if he is the head coach, he gonna run the defense great. He gonna probably do a little bit of what Dan Quinn did and some of what Zim is doing.
yeah.
And but my whole thing is, and it's been like this for the majority since we dropped our channel. My focus is on the offense. The defense, I'm not really worried about. I feel like,
That's why I wouldn't hire a defensive coach.
what if you hire a defensive coach, but you bring in someone to just to totally redo your whole offense?
You can do that, but the guys at the top of the game that are at the top of the game right now are the two guys that we mentioned.
They're
So I would,
coordinators.
yeah, but I would, man, I'm gonna look at hiring an offensive coach, but
I
you can do it the other way.
would too. I'm just saying. Listen, both
Mm,
ways involve totally redoing the offense. That's the point.
yeah.
If you hire an offense coordinator, what's going to happen is you're going to totally redo your offense.
Well,
And if
no,
you
I
hire,
do you one better. Here's the thing: the guys we talking about offensively, you're not redoing your offense. It's
oh
the
yeah,
same offense.
you just adding the stuff that we
They
don't do.
Yeah, they just the innovators. They just innovative. They got bells and whistles with it. It's the same offense. So
It is, and that's why it's the West Coast offense, and that's why it
yeah.
started with the 49ers and
So
Shanahan.
so
That's
for Dak, it's not gonna be
easy to
hard.
transition. Yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah, it's
easy to
gonna
transition.
for all of the players.
Yeah, you're right.
And
The
then what you got to do too, you got to hire up and coming offensive line coach because the guy that you have, he's 80 something years old. He coached with Tom Landry.
This is
So
crazy.
Laurie. So
And
let's
it
go
go.
ahead and wrap.
Yeah, and it all goes back into what they do, what they
Mm,
need to change. I
yep.
mean, so but anyways, y'all, thank y'all for tuning in to episode 18. Y'all make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. And we're gonna drop one tomorrow. We did what did we do today? We just talked about everything really. So we
We
gonna
just
see
kind
y'all.
of vented today.
Yeah, we just kind of vented. We just had a vent session. It was good. It's good for the soul. We needed to. So yeah, we'll reach out to y'all tomorrow. We'll be back and we'll post another video. And so y'all make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate everybody. Shout out to everybody that we mentioned. Shout out to Star. Shout out to DLLS, Mickey Spagnolia, and everybody at Blogging the Boys, RJ Ochoa, and the rest of shout out to Jesse Holly, Clarence Hill, a lot of everybody. So we appreciate y'all and y'all stay tuned and hit the like and comment and subscribe and we'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.